Senator Lyons.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. And I rise to speak in support of marriage equality. And I ask, how much longer will LGBTI couples have to wait to be treated as fully equal citizens in my country? I believe and I stand for human rights. I believe and I stand for human dignity. I believe and I stand for fairness. And I believe and I stand for justice. And for as long as we don't change our laws to enable marriage for all of our citizens, we deny these basic human rights. And I believe that children are entitled, have a right to a safe, secure, loving environment, however that is provided, whether it's provided by a grandfather, a grandmother, a sole parent, a mother and a father, 2 men, 2 women. That is the entitlement of a child. Australia has always been a leader in fairness and equity. The 8-hour day, the 38-hour week, our arbitration system. We outlawed the death penalty, our pension system, our living wage, votes for women, no-fault divorce, abortion, and yet on this issue of marriage equality, we're stuck. We're not an overtly religious country. We have a separation of powers. We are not a conservative country. Yet on this very basic issue of human rights, on marriage equality, Australia is becoming the outlier. Ireland's recent referendum, an overwhelming yes, that vote has reignited passions for marriage equality here in Australia. The Conservative voices have been saying, let's have a referendum here. But of course Australia does not need a referendum to act on marriage equality. Ireland's constitution required a referendum. What's required here is for the Parliament to act, for 226 elected representatives, for a majority of those elected representatives to vote to support marriage equality. And it seems we're prevented from doing so. The Conservatives are pushing for us to wait. Wait for what, I ask? We've been waiting far too long on this issue. The issue of marriage equality has been on the agenda for more than a decade. Overwhelmingly, Australians support marriage equality. 1 in every 4 Australians. Australians who identify as Christians support marriage equality. 57% of Liberal voters support marriage equality. Very strong support from Labor and Greens voters. The strongest group of supporters are young Australians who have grown up in communities that support and want marriage equality. This group absolutely supports marriage equality, as high as 86%. No matter how you slice the numbers, the support is there, by age, by voting preference, by religious affiliation. It is just here in the Australian Parliament, it is just 226 elected representatives who can't or won't get it done. Given its strong support amongst young people at 86%, the vote for marriage equality is inevitable. But come on, let's make this vote a reality sooner rather than later. In Ireland, just over 62% of the population voted for marriage equality. This is in a country where homosexuality was still illegal in 1993, and divorce was only legislated in 1996. It has come such a long way in a relatively short period of time, and yet, by comparison, Australia remains stuck despite community support for marriage equality. And it is just the Australian Parliament, this place, which continues to isolate itself from the community and state jurisdictions. State and territory governments have moved as far as they can. In 1994, the ACT was the first jurisdiction to legally recognise the union of same-sex couples. In 1999, in New South Wales, they introduced the recognition of same-sex couples in a variety of legislation. In WA, same-sex couples have a de facto status in 2002. The same in Queensland in 2002. The Northern Territory in 2003 recognised same-sex couples, and in 2004 LGBTI rights were described as the most extensive and noteworthy in Tasmania. In 2007 in South Australia, and the same in Victoria in 2007. And yet the Australian Parliament still remains stuck on this issue when the state and territory governments have changed all of their laws that relate to same-sex couples. And around the world, Australia is being left behind with marriage equality. Laws being proclaimed in both progressive and conservative countries, with Nepal, Slovenia and Paraguay imminent, and just recently with Mexican courts ruling out of order the concept of marriage as just between a man and a woman. Whilst those on the conservative side of politics tell us to continue to wait, and I say, wait for what? This issue of marriage equality will not go away. The time to act is now. I do not understand what the issue is. Marriage as a ceremony can be performed almost anywhere in Australia: a church, a registry office, a winery, on the beach, anywhere. Extending this right, the right of marriage, to the LGBTI community does not change that. It doesn't affect the partnership between a man and a woman who choose marriage. It doesn't affect children. My children, I wanted them to be brought up in a society and meeting people who were different, who had different views to me. I wanted them to be open. And they've got a whole range of friends, as have I. That's the sort of upbringing that I wanted them to have, to be open and to choose to do whatever they thought suited them. And of course, that relationship between a man and a woman, that is not threatened if we bring in marriage equality. It doesn't undermine the church. It simply extends the same right of marriage to all. And like all couples, some will choose marriage and some will not. But let's not deny this right to choose marriage equality any longer. Thank you.